Hi, how you doing? My name's Scott Head, and what I'm going to do here is a database recovery to a point in time. This took me a little while to figure out how to do it and everything, and it can be a very time-constrained thing if you're actually doing a recovery of a failed SQL server and people are losing their mind because no one can do their job. So one of the key things I want you to remember is before you start anything, even though your database might be in a disarray, go ahead and back everything up again. Back up your full SQL server. Don't attempt any restores without trying to make sure you've got backups even of the bad data. Because in the long run, if you don't want to overwrite something and erase everything, and then end up having even bigger problems. So let's get started. Right now I've got a set up SQL server for this project. Created a address database and a address table. As you can see here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and delete this table from my database. Then I'm going to go to make sure one of the big things about doing restore, you can't have anybody connecting to it or doing anything with it. Of course, it's like if there's other tables in there and people are trying to work or whatever. When I'm doing my restores of my databases, you want to make sure that there's no one making connections, including yourself. So the best way I found to actually deal with that is I go File and I just disconnect from the SQL server, and I go File and I connect right back to it. I've actually gone through the menu here and expanded these, and as soon as I clicked on it, it said in use. So I just log in, I don't do anything else at that point. And I go File, I hit Open, go to File, and these are some pre-made scripts I've already put together, and make this a little bit easier on everybody so I can explain it instead of trying to type it all out. The first thing I've ran into with error messages telling me that I haven't backed up my log files recently, and I get that error. So by doing this command here on the address, or the database in question that I'm going to do the restore to, I just do a quick and dirty backup of the log files, and that seems to take care of the problem. And then also what you need to remember is the no recovery. The no recovery statement says, hey, there's more that's going to happen. So this kind of starts out your restore process and tells SQL, hey, we're going to start doing some work here. So it knows that it's expecting more, and at this point in time with the no recovery statement, the database itself should not be able to be in use. You want to make sure that you've got that statement in there. The next query I'm going to do, and this is an important thing, is restoring a database with corrupted data from your backup isn't what you want to do. You want to actually go one more backup behind that. So if I back up my SQL data every half hour and someone made an issue at, like, say 1:15 in the afternoon, I don't want to go ahead and grab my 1:30 backup and do a full restore, because of course I'm still going to have all my issues and all my problems. And this is something along the lines like someone's doing some software, and I was working with someone and he was working on live data, and he actually went through and rewrote an entire table and messed up a SQL query, and actually made everything the same exact thing all the way through the table. So this is for those times when you have serious problems and something happened or something glitched, or even maybe you can't even get the database to come up or the table because it's actually got corrupted data in it. And this is kind of like a last straw kind of thing, but it seems to work out. So yet again, I'm not going to take the 1:30 backup. What I'd do is I'd go ahead and take my 1 p.m. backup when I knew all my data was good and everything was rolling great at 1 o'clock, so I know everything was working great at 1. So that's the backup I'm going to grab and I'm going to restore from. Then from there, once I've executed this, and yet again it's going to have the no recovery because it's going to let SQL know that I'm doing more to it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to execute this query and saying blah, 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 blah. So it's telling me that I haven't done my backup of my log file, just like I said. So I'm going to try that again and make sure that that's processed through. This should be a backup of my database. And now I've executed a recovery of the 1 p.m. backup. Now, to do a point in time, what you need to do is you need to do a backup, you need to do a restore of the log file that coincides with the backup that you used. So this backup was made at the same time that this log file was made. So then I have to execute this as well, and there's a reason for that. It's kind of like having to do a incremental restore. Is I'm not just going to go from my backup to, you know, the most current log file. What I've got to do is I got to go from the backup that I used for my restore, then I use its log file, and then I go ahead and I execute that. And that happened because I had this highlighted. So I'll make sure I don't have anything highlighted. Hit execute. So that did a restore in the log file and everything is good to go. Then what I'll do for here, and what you'll see, and also as you'll notice, you'll say with no recovery at the end as well, letting SQL know, hey, there's more to come. Then right here, this is now a backup log file from the 1:30 backup. So far I've done a restore of everything that happened at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Now I go to my backup that happened at 1:30 in the afternoon, and I grab just the log file and I do a restore, and this is where the change happens. Is you have a with stop at command, and then you have your date and your time, and then you end with recovery, and that pretty much should be able to give you your database back and go back to work and start working again. And what I did is I created that original tables. I went in, and this took me a while, I went in every minute and added a SQL statement. So I inserted data every minute so that I could see how this was going to work. So pretty much if it was before 1:15 in the morning, which is yes when I was doing this, before 1:15 in the morning, then there should be a stamp in there in the database from my entry where that will say 1:14 and then on back. So let's go ahead and execute this, and then I'll go over here and let's see if my database table came back. Alright, there's my table that I had. And do a quick select statement. And as you can see, I was doing a lot of different stuff for dates and timestamps. Back here is when I started like 106, 111, 112, 113, 114. So as you see right here, my restore has gone ahead and ran using a log file. So it's not using anything out of that backup database that I know of. It's just using that log file, and it's going up to a certain point in time and restoring my database table, well, my database up to 1:14 a.m. and pretty much stopped at 1:15. So let's say that everything went crazy at 1:15 in the morning and everybody started having errors and no one could connect with their software, or they went in their software and they were getting incorrect data. Maybe there's a SQL statement that's in the programming incorrectly. Sometimes you just get data corruption. But either way, now I'm able to at least go back and recover that work that was done between 1 and 1:15 in the morning, and get everybody up right to that point in time, and that way I can save some data. And a lot of it, yeah, it's only 15 minutes, but if I have 500 people working in SQL, that could have been a lot of entries and a lot of changes that happened in those 15 minutes. So it's really crucial to be able to get people up to the point in time where they actually weren't able to work anymore. And with this software, as long as you've got a way to figure out exactly when the point in time, you know, happened and when the problem began, and you can actually now do a restore right up to that point in time. And probably what I would suggest doing after you're done with this, don't go and tell everybody to start going back to work. I'd connect with the software. I'd start doing some queries, and also checking with the staff. A lot of times what I've done is I've gone to them and said, hey, okay, what was the last order that you entered? What was the last address or change that you made? And then I'll go in and make sure that they're able to see the information and the information's in the right spot. If there were other people that were seeing issues with the data, saying, hey, this data is actually wrong, I'm getting someone else's address underneath someone else's name. Well, now that I've done my restore, okay, well, that should all be fixed now, and then move forward, but also try to analyze how this actually happened. You want to find out before you tell everybody to go back to work. That guy goes and does the same thing again, it executes the same query, you're going to be right back in the same boat. So you really want to try to also find out how this actually happened. So to recap, Connected to SQL. Just for a sample, I deleted my table, out of my database. Maybe someone actually said, was in there working and they said drop database or something like that. You never really know. Sometimes bad things happen. It asked me to make sure I did a backup of my log. I ran a backup of the backup prior to when the issue happened. Then I ran the log file backup that coincided at the exact same time when this backup was completed, and ran that execution. Then I went ahead and ran the next log file backup in the backups solution that I had set up, incremented, next 15 or 20 minutes or half hour, however often you back up your SQL data. And then I used the whiz stop at command, added date, time, and then the recovery statement to get the database back and be able to be used. And then I did a simple select statement to actually just kind of take a look and make sure everything was working. So this is my video. If you have any more questions, please feel free to email me and I'll take a look at issues you might be having. But I do a lot of stuff with SQL, so I wanted to make sure that this was something I was able to work on. And honestly, it has a lot of the same concepts of Exchange, which Microsoft Exchange is back in pretty much as SQL. So when I've had to do recoveries of Exchange before, and it was the same concepts where, you got to start with one backup and then just kind of keep going on top of everything else to get all your data back with the log files. So those log files out there are very important. I wouldn't just truncate them or delete them. Another thing, like talking about Exchange, where you got circular logging, where it actually is deleting old log files. I'd keep those log files as long as you can, and not delete them. They are as important as the backup of the actual databases. So keep your log files backed up, and keep your databases backed up on a regular basis. And the more often you run your backups, the more data you're going to actually be able to recover. Thank you very much. This is Scott Head with BitOfHelp.com on a little bit on SQL. Have a good day.